Hello and welcome to Shampoo and Booze. This is episode number 57. We are a podcast about Airbnb and short-term rentals at shampooandbooze.com. We are Ryan and Ashley. We are sisters who both run Airbnbs and want to help you run your Airbnb. Every week we cover topics about the design and operation of short-term rentals. You can send us your questions with an audio file or written to shampooandbooze@gmail.com, and we will do our best to cover the topics that you care about. We're also available to give design and listing advice for your own personal situation. You can check out our services page at notperf.com to book a time with us.
So, we mentioned this on our last episode, but we are doing a giveaway. Basically, if you want some design advice or you would like us to just look at your listing and see what we think in terms of your setup, please let us know. We're doing a giveaway. And basically, we're going to choose one lucky podcast listener to give design advice on your Airbnb. So, to enter, submit your Airbnb listing to us and we will choose somebody and do a video walkthrough of their Airbnb. We will blur out the location information so it's a little bit on the anonymous side, and we'll be very kind to give you feedback. We'll be so kind. So send us your listings at shampooandbooze@gmail.com, and we look forward to seeing your listings.
Okay, today we are talking about cooking spaces and kitchens, which I believe, and I'm sure that Ashley agrees with me, is a very important part of why people rent an Airbnb in the first place, so that they have a place to cook and save money.
Exactly. Yeah, I think the cooking spaces and kitchens, especially if you're renting out an entire apartment or an entire space, is a huge draw for people, especially if they're on vacation or they're trying to save money by not eating out every night. So it's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, and when you stay in a hotel, I mean, you're lucky if you have a fridge or a microwave or anything. I mean, I've stayed in hotels that didn't have any of those things, and I'm like, I have, a little bit of food that I need to put somewhere, so that's why Airbnbs are awesome, because they mostly always have a kitchen. But there have been several times where I've stayed in places, Ashley stayed in places, we've stayed in places together where they just had nothing in the kitchen. The one time we went to New York City and we stayed with our mom in this apartment, and there was no coffee maker. Not a single any type of coffee maker. Nothing.
Not even instant coffee.
There was nothing. And okay, granted, we're in this amazing neighborhood in New York City, so there's gorgeous coffee shops, on every block. But, one day I had woken up really early and I was getting ready to go get my bus home, and I wanted to just make a cup of coffee to go, to bring with me or whatever. And I couldn't do that. I had to leave the apartment, go get some coffee, come back, pack my stuff. So, that's a big one, but
right.
It just made things a little bit tough where you're like, this is such an easy thing for people to put in here.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the rule of thumb is if you have a sink or a counter or, your space basically offers some kind of kitchen area, you should have some kind of coffee maker, whether it's a French press or drip filters or anything that allows people to make hot water and pour it through some coffee.
Right.
It's that's the golden rule of Airbnb is there must be coffee and tea.
Yeah, I mean, especially, so, we're starting out with a very specific example, but, if you've been traveling all day and you're just checking in and you're tired and you're getting ready to go out to dinner or meet some friends or whatever, you're yeah, I want to make some coffee or some tea before I head out. People sometimes have coffee makers, but they won't have any coffee. And you're I mean, those are the cheapest things to be able to have.
Which is this probably the saddest scenario ever, right? Especially think about rural places, you're more rural, right? And so, if someone comes in late or whatever, they came in later than expected, and then they wake up in the morning and there's no coffee, and they're like, I now have to find a grocery store. I have to like drive to Walmart, that's like nightmare. That's like nightmare vacation,
Yeah. So let's first talk about appliances. Now, I've gone to some rentals in my area where I had other friends staying there visiting us because ours were booked. And man, some of those appliances looked like they were from the 70s, and not in a good way. Not like, this is retro.
Not retro.
Yeah, like it's like, it's been scrubbed with a scrubby so much that you can't read any of the writing, and like the enamel paint is like, scrubbed through. It's just, appliances are really, if you can get, basic appliances for not a lot of money. And what we try to do is we try to get higher end appliances on Craigslist, because people will, move into a house that's got brand new appliances and they're like, oh, we don't like the color, or we switched to gas and this is electric. And they just sell a brand new oven for a tiny fraction of the price. Actually, 2 of our ovens came to us that way. And the one in my house as well came to us that way.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, especially if appliances are worn out, like, even if they work, if they, like, my apartment, particularly, the refrigerator was from 1971. Oh, God. It was stamped 1971. I remember that. It was the worst refrigerator. And when it turned on, it sounded like a jet engine was in my kitchen. And so if appliances like that are making the space unpleasant, I mean, it doesn't matter how much you can clean an appliance like that. If you can get a fairly cheap refrigerator that's new or scratch and dent or lightly used, I think that that's so much more desirable in a rental space than something that, quote unquote, works okay.
No, I mean, and I remember when you moved into your apartment, you moved from one floor to the other because you'd lived in that house for a long time. You got all new in quotes.
Yes.
So one was, I think I helped you find them on Craigslist because I'm such a Craigslist nerd.
Yeah. From across the country, you basically sent me Craigslist listings. Employ a sister.
Yeah, I went on Boston Craigslist and I found this like gorgeous refrigerator that was kind of like a smaller fridge. It wasn't apartment size, it was full size, but it was like slim. And it was and it's funny because the last fridge that we got for the apartment we're renovating is the same thing. It was bought for an office. So I think this is what the case was for you. It was like the office fridge, they had bought it and then the office moved, and the office they were moving into already had appliances. So they sold it on Craigslist for like $100. It wasn't even the one that we bought. It still had like the tape to like tape the shelves in. Like they hadn't even used it. So it's this beautiful, European style fridge, and it was $100, and they're like, just take it. We need it moved today,
Yeah. And that's exactly like, that's the kind of find where if you're willing to put some Craigslist alerts up and you're willing to hustle a little bit. Also, rehab stores are really good. I don't know if you have those in your area, but we have like
the Restore.
We have restores around, and they have super decent appliances that have just been pulled out of people's houses.
Right. Yeah, so it's not hard to update that or add stuff if you don't have something, or if you're doing a bedroom. Like I was looking at Airbnb listing recently where they had kind of like, I guess it was a dorm fridge or it was like a drink fridge in the room, which was actually really nice. Like they were just renting out a guest room. There was a kitchen, but there was like, they also had a fridge where you could put your own drinks or like leftovers or whatever. So I thought that was kind of a nice touch as well.
Yeah. And if a room like a guest room has a refrigerator, we always suggest, if you can put it in a closet or you can kind of hide it in a way that it's not like you're sleeping next to a dorm fridge. Right. That's always ideal,
Yeah.
But it's nice. It's nice to have separate space for guests to put their food if possible.
Right. So moving on from appliances, I think we want to talk about, obviously the absolute must-haves if you have a kitchen. Obviously, we said a coffee maker and supplies for making coffee, and that includes coffee. Coffee and tea, creamers and sugar. Now, I totally understand why some hosts don't want to put this stuff in, because you always have to refill it. Like, it's constantly being used. It's almost like you're in a restaurant and you're like, we always have to be like, but honestly, it makes a day so much better for your guests. Like coffee, tea, creamers, sugar, hot water kettle for making tea, or, a stovetop kettle, whatever. Just those things are so important for people to be able to be comfortable.
Yeah. And I was going to say this later, but I'm going to say it now. I always like to have a little like beverage station, so because people use my kitchen, and so it's nice for them to know this is like the beverage area, this is where the tea and coffee and everything that they could find is there, so they don't feel like they have to poke around my kitchen, because people are shy. Actually, I find that people are quite shy, probably not as much in a rental house as like an apartment, but I think people are shy to like poke around in my kitchen, especially when I'm there. So I like to have everything accessible, handy, easily findable.
Yeah, it's basically like, I don't even know what you would call it, but like a beverage bar, a coffee bar. We always call it like the coffee bar. We have them in every house. We actually like built a whole bar at the new apartment just to be like, this is where you make coffee. This is where you make tea. This is where your beer and wine can be stored. We bought a beer and wine fridge to go underneath it. Yeah, there's no guessing. You're not like looking around the kitchen. Maybe you're not going to use the kitchen at all. Maybe you are just going to make coffee and go out and be out all day, like at your apartment, So those things are super important, like coffee, tea, creamers, sugar. All that stuff is like right there. Little spoons, you make your coffee and you do it right there. And I like to have different versions of coffee makers. That's me. We have a drip coffee maker and we have a French press. We used to have like those stovetop espresso maker, but people burned the countertop and burned they would burn the cutting boards all the time.
Because they just put them on the cutting boards.
Yeah, they would just be like, okay, I made my coffee. And then they like put it on the cutting board and it would be the exact size of the espresso maker. I mean, like a black charred like circle of just like death. So we were like, you know what?
Black charred circle of death.
If someone wants an espresso, they need to go to the actual coffee, coffee
Well, it's
place.
interesting because this will come up too. People on vacation have like fantastical ideas of like what they could or should eat, and it's funny because I feel like people use espresso makers even when they don't know how to use them, but they think like, oh, it's like vacation, let's make an espresso. Yeah And you're like, what? Why did you burn my countertop? That's
Look,
insane.
That definitely has happened several times. So just going off that point real quick, I'm like jumping around in our little outline here, but people love to make bacon.
Yes, they do.
Like, I have had so many bacon incidents. I'm not joking, where I've had bacon grease on the ceiling of the kitchen.
Oh,
I'm like,
my God.
I have no idea how that got there. I've cooked bacon tons of times in my life and never. So I had to repaint the ceiling in the kitchen because of that.
That's insane. So how do you work with people who I mean, like, if you know people are going to cook bacon, how do you work with that?
So what we have in our kitchens are, you can go on, I think it's on Amazon where we got this. You need a grease pot because people are going to either throw it in the trash and melt your trash can because it's hot. I don't know what the deal is, like, if people don't cook bacon at home. I'm like, have you never cooked bacon before? Apparently not. So this metal grease pot, and it has a top, and the lid says grease. Like, it is so crystal clear what this thing is for that you can't mess it up. Now, it sucks when you're cleaning or you have cleaners. You're like, you gotta scoop this out, either into the trash or the compost, depending on what you have. But it's very important. So there's that. And I also have like this screen that can go over a pan. That's just like, you just scrub it with soap afterwards. But we have one of those at home because that just helps the splatter, the grease splatter.
It's like a splatter screen. We could link to them in the
that's
in the blog post.
So those, look, people they cook bacon on vacation. They cook bacon at home, I think, but I don't know. They're real messy about it when they cook it on vacation.
Well, what's interesting is I find people don't really cook in my kitchen. They'll heat up leftovers, but often they don't. They are not like going all crazy and cooking stuff.
Right. And you're in the city too, so I'm sure there's there's amazing restaurants everywhere and people are going out, and here it's all about let's make a big breakfast before we go out hiking, that's a whole thing. So that being said about bacon, you definitely want cleaning supplies. So they're going to spill things and they're going to want to clean up after themselves. I mean, even if they have kids throwing Cheerios everywhere, people are pretty good about cleaning, I find. So you want to I have dish towels. I actually just got these new dish towels. I had these IKEA cotton ones that were really pretty, and they get red wine and they get coffee all over them. I still have a couple that I'm and they get grease on them, and that never comes out. So I recently went to the dollar store, or what is it called? It's called Dollar Tree, and where literally everything's $1.
Yes.
It's not Dollar General where things are $5 and you're I don't understand this store. It's Dollar Tree, and they have these. They're polyester. They're almost polyester microfiber dish towels. And at first I was these are cheap and they're ugly and whatever. And I'm they are indestructible. They do not stain and they do not fall apart and get holes in them. Every time I get them back, they'll have coffee grounds and stuff on them, and I wash them and they're clean. They're great. So I absolutely love those now. I'm obsessed with them. I'm and they're $1, so that's awesome.
Yeah, I've been to Airbnbs before where I can't find cleaning supplies. I can't find a rag to wipe something up on the floor, or I can't find an extra sponge, or, and it's right. I don't know if it's that they don't have them or they hide the cleaning supplies, but I feel it's good to have supplies accessible because people genuinely want to keep your house clean.
Yeah, and we have paper towels, which I'm not a big fan of paper towels personally because I don't like using excess paper and I don't want to throw that stuff away. But look, people families with dogs and kids, and you got for us, we're we have to have paper towels in abundance. So the other thing too, you want accessible for people are trash bags because they're gonna fill up the trash can. If they're there for more than a couple nights. I have someone staying right now that's there for 8 days or something. And yeah, they need extra trash bags. Foil, plastic wrap. We do sandwich bags because a lot of people will do trail mix or make sandwiches for their kids to go hiking and stuff. That's pretty basic stuff. I mean, it is kind of a bummer to always just be replenishing those things, but I have my cleaners tell me what I need. They know what's in the kitchen, and I say, just tell me what's getting low and I'll send more with you, or if I have time to go over there, I'll restock. Because, you want people to have stuff. You don't want people to have to buy a roll of foil, for their 3-night stay.
Well, and that was one of the points I was going to make, is that if you don't make some of these things available, people improvise in really bizarre ways. I stayed at an Airbnb once that, I mean, it was a full house. It was on the ocean. A bunch of us were staying there for someone's birthday, and they didn't have a spatula.
Wow.
Just basic spatula. And so we were how do we make eggs in the morning, So then we were using their metal spoons on their nonstick pans.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's what was our choice there,
Right.
And so again, it's basic things. Don't give them a metal spatula if all you have is, nonstick pans, those kinds of things. And otherwise people improvise, and you don't want that. You don't want people to improvise.
Yeah, exactly. And so, like, what you're saying is, you want utensils, all, like, look in your own kitchen. I mean, if you don't cook, maybe you don't have these things. But if you cook anything, I cook all the time at home. That's, like, basically all I eat. We don't eat out almost ever. So yeah, you need pots and pans, and we have like roasting pans and stuff that people, cookie sheets, stuff like that. Obviously regular flatware, and also like spatulas, spoons, things like that. We're obsessive. We have an abundance of like anything you could possibly need. Another thing I will specifically mention are can openers. So we have like one of those safety can openers that are like, I'd never used one before, except we found one at a thrift store and I was like, oh, this is cool. Like it opens it so there's no sharp edge. But some people don't actually know how to use those. So we also have a regular can opener too. Like someone messaged us once and they're like, your can opener doesn't work. We're like, there's another one. So they use the other one. So yeah, it's things like that are super important. They're like, oh, I have this like, salsa or whatever that I want to open, and they can't open it,
Right. And specifically also wine screws and beer bottle openers, like multiple ones.
Right, multiple ones. Like to have one in the drawer, have one hanging on a hook, like have one on the fridge that's on a magnet. I mean, just you can't have enough of those, honestly, because people will accidentally bring them home, which I've had happen.
Or they break, or
they get misplaced. So having those are obviously people are on vacation. The other thing too is we have like outdoor chairs and stuff, and we have bottle openers on the chairs. Like
that's awesome.
Yeah, so we have these like Adirondack chairs like out on the porch on both porches, and we just have like little bottle openers out there. I don't know. I'm pretty sure people see them, but they're kind of like under the handle or under the armrest. And so if you have like also a beverage like bar area, you can have a couple of those like screwed into the like legs of the countertop or something.
Yeah, that's a nice touch. I like that.
Yeah, so that's not going to get misplaced. That's just there.
What do you recommend for things like spices, oil? Like, how do you keep that stuff stocked? Because I have that in my kitchen because I'm cooking all the time, and I let people know, if they need something, they can definitely use it.
Yeah, so what we have is, obviously one of the most important things is olive oil, or whatever kind of cooking oil is like in your area, but olive oil is pretty basic. Salt and pepper, very basic. We have that like we have shakers on the table and like in the kitchen. And then we'll have like basically all our places have little spice racks, and they're like not huge bottles of spices, like it's not massive, but I keep a bulk size in our like cleaners. We have bins for our cleaners, and they fill them up, and they'll tell me if it's low, if they're like, oh, the black pepper, the big, black pepper is low, so we'll buy more. But I just try to because they're honestly my eyes and ears on the ground there. Like they see everything every time stuff gets cleaned. So I just have them make sure I have like a big jug of oil that's like in their bin, and they just know to fill it up every time. So like for olive oil, we have like this stainless and glass like olive oil container, because what I was doing with olive oil is I would buy like a fancy little glass bottle one and have them fill it up from my like big jug from Costco or wherever. But people would finish it and they would recycle the thing. It would be like a fancy, glass jar, but they're like, oh, it's done. So they would just recycle it. So my cleaner,
God.
Right, which makes sense. They're like, well, it's done. I'm like, yeah, but I'm trying to like refill that bottle every time, which people didn't understand. So I actually went on Amazon and I bought this like cruette set where it's stainless and glass, and it's like a non-spill pourer, and you just like unscrew the top and pour the oil in. So, and I labeled it, I'm like, olive oil. So it's more obvious that like that's
it
not...
gets refilled.
Yeah, like this is a thing that you have in your kitchen that gets refilled.
Maybe we can link to that as well.
Yeah, it's a really good one, actually. I really love them. But yeah, what's really funny is one of the first times I put that out, someone actually threw it away. I was like, I cannot win. I don't know if these people just didn't cook very often or whatever, and they used it and it was just gone. I mean, my cleaner's like, it's gone. I'm like, I just put it there like last week. I bought it on Amazon.
That is insane.
Yeah, so things like that definitely happen where you're like, I built a system and the system didn't work and I don't know how to make it work.
I feel like you cannot underestimate people's misunderstanding of things. I mean, every time it's like, wait, what? Wait, right. How did you miss that? Or like, how is it that this thing isn't here anymore? You know? Yeah. So anyway, it's just such a good example. Like, you really cannot underestimate people.
Well, the other thing too is what happens is people will, where we live anyway, they'll do a huge grocery shopping run. You know, they'll bring all their food and their condiments, and although we put condiments over there so that people don't have to buy that stuff, like ketchup, mustard, mayonnaise, stuff like that. People will take stuff home with them because they're like, oh, this is ours. Like, they'll just like pack it up, or their teenage kids are helping them pack and they just like take stuff. So either those people thought that olive oil was theirs or they threw it away. I mean, I didn't see it in the recycling, so... Yeah, it's one of those things where you just have to have backups where if someone's like, okay, the olive oil's gone, your cleaners are like, the olive oil's gone, you're like, okay, I'll just drive over there and put another one. That does happen. But something that's related is labeling things. Like I was saying, labeling the olive oil. So it's just super clear. You're like, this is what you don't want people to guess. I mean, it's kind of like when you were at that place and you're like, is there a spatula? Like, am I supposed to find this somewhere that's like not in the kitchen? You know, like, why wouldn't you have this? I don't know.
Right. Like, where is it?
Right. So things you want to label are like, I mean, this is throughout the whole house, but we label all the lights because you'll go into a room and there are like 4 switches. There's this one place we stayed in, it was in Colombia, actually. It was this apartment that we stayed in. It was Medellin. We stayed in Medellin, and this apartment, number one, it had a kitchen with no salt and pepper or olive oil. So we were, like, trying to make food from the grocery store, and we were like, oh, this is horrible. And all the lights, there were, like, you know, light switches that had like a bank of like 5 lights. And like every time we went in the apartment, we were like, which one, what is, you know, some of them didn't do anything. It was like, okay. So yeah, label lights, label it if you have a disposal. You know, there's like those weird disposal switches where it's like, it looks like a light switch and you turn it on. You're like, oh my God.
Yeah. And it's the friggin' disposal.
Yeah. So heating and cooling, electronics, TV, you know, anything like that where you just don't, you know, just like in the kitchen, you don't want people guessing. You don't want people being like, what is this? I don't know how to use it, you know?
Exactly. And if there's some weird extra instructions for how to find something, put it in your guest book. Like, because people actually will reference it and say, where are the extra trash bags, you know? And it's like, extra trash bags are in the garage or, you know, wherever. If something is in a weird place, let people know where it is.
Yeah, because they're going to be looking for those things. And so one last thing that I just learned this lesson, it took me years to figure this out, trash and recycling. So recycling is different everywhere. Like in New York City, we stay there quite often, and we stay at our friend's apartment most of the time when they're traveling, and the recycling is so specific there that you just have to know the system or else, like, the stuff doesn't get picked up and the landlord gets mad and all this stuff. But where we live, so Ashley was telling me where she lives, it's just like a bin.
It's single stream, so it all just goes... We just put it all into a paper bag, and then it goes into recycling.
Which is very helpful. Like, I wish it was like that where I live. We live in a rural area, and trash goes to the landfill part, and then recycling has to get sorted. So for the longest time, we had these recycling bins at the rentals, but they didn't have like a liner or a bag or anything. And so my cleaners were just like, we don't know what to do with this. So they just put it in the garbage. There'd be like glass bottles and beer cans and all the recyclables in the trash.
No.
Right. So, and, I would ask them to separate it, but, they would put it in a black trash bag. So it all looked like trash. And so I would be like bumping all the trash bags. Like, is this recycling? Oh, this is recycling. But then they like dumped the vacuum cleaner dust in there with it and like just threw it in the bin at our house. And so finally, this is like, it took me years to just get a system in place just because it took a while. I bought these bins at IKEA, these white bins. I bought like actual like vinyl labels that have like the recycling symbol.
Yes.
And the little stickers actually say like paper, glass, aluminum, plastic. Like, so it's like, because actually a lot of renters like, and people from other countries would be like, what am I supposed, I don't know. They put plastic bags, like you're not supposed to put plastic bags. That's like another recycling thing.
Right.
So I finally made, this is last week, I finally made those. I made a sign for the white trash bags that will be the liners. Like I made a sign on the trash bags, like these are just for the recycling bin, So finally the last couple cleanings, my cleaners have given me a black trash bag and a white trash bag with just recycling in it. It actually made me super happy where I was like, oh, it's the recycling. Like I can open it up and I have like 5 bins in the back of my house underneath my porch. And I'm like plastic, metal, paper,
it's like a recycling Christmas miracle.
Yeah. Although I was just telling Ashley a second ago that yesterday, one of my cleaners, I think she has a helper that helps her sometimes. she gave me the trash. And I'm looking at the trash, and it's just a black trash bag. And I'm like, oh, she threw the white bag in the black bag. So I open up the black bag, and there's the recycling in the trash.
Oh, my God.
So I had to, like, re-explain it to her. I'm like, So
it's endless.
Yeah. So, I mean, with a lot of these things, like with just the kitchen supplies and trash supplies and stuff, you have to have a system. Like you have to have a system for how it works, how it gets refilled. It's just like with the olive oil where you're like, okay, I need a better system with the olive oil because people are like, oh, this fancy, like cool bottle, I'm just going to throw in the recycling, or it broke and it's in the trash and like now there's no olive oil.
And do you ever make a place for guests to let you know if something's out? Do you ever communicate to them about that?
They will just tell us. I mean, they'll be like, we used all the olive oil and we used the dish soap and we couldn't find any extra because maybe I actually am out of like everything. Even the extras. So they'll say that stuff sometimes, but really it's my cleaners that tell me. I mean, they're like, the olive oil is low and the olive oil in the bin, for refilling is low. Because they're the ones that are like seeing everything. So,
right. They're on the front line.
Yeah, basically. Like they literally are my eyes and ears over there. Because how am I going to know that like garlic powder is low? I don't even know. So... they're the ones that really, and we go to our places to do maintenance and to just check in on things, but there'll be several weeks in a row that I just don't have time to go over there, or there's someone there for a week at a time and I can't, look at it. So, So yeah, it's really important if you have someone who's cleaning and doing maintenance to like tell you that stuff. Okay, so I think that's it for us, but if you have stuff that you put in your rental that we did not discuss, we would love to hear about it. You can email us an audio file or just a written email at shampooandbooze@gmail.com.
Or you can leave comments on the blog. Thanks for listening to Shampoo and Booze at shampooandbooze.com. As usual, send us your questions with an audio file or written questions to shampooandbooze@gmail.com. And we always do our best to cover the topics that you care about. Don't forget about our design and listing advice services. Head over to our services page at notperf, as in notperfect.com, notperf.com, to book your design advice session with us.
Bye.
Bye.